2026 Annual General Meeting of Shareholders of SiriusPoint Limited. Please note that today's meeting is being recorded. It is now my pleasure to turn today's meeting over to Bronek Masuyada, Chairman of the Board of Directors of SiriusPoint Limited. Mr. Masuyada, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting to order this morning at 10 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I am pleased to welcome you to the 2026 Annual General Meeting of the Shareholders of SiriusPoint Limited. My name is Bronek Masuyada, and I'm the Chairman of the Board of Directors of SiriusPoint. It is my pleasure to serve as Chair of today's meeting. I am pleased to welcome my fellow members of the SiriusPoint Board of Directors. Scott Egan, Director and Chief Executive Officer. Susan Cross, Director and Chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee. Martin Hudson, Director. Dan Lowe, Director. Sharon Ludlow, Director and Chair of the Audit Committee. Mehdi Mahmood, Director and Chair of the Investment Committee. Franklin Montrose IV, Director and Chair of the Risk Management Committee. Sabra Fertel, Director. Jason Robot, Director and Chair of the Compensation Committee. And Peter Tan, Director. I am also pleased to welcome several members of SiriusPoint Limited Executive Management Team who are with us today. James McKinney, Chief Financial Officer, and Linda Lynn, Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary, who will act as Secretary of today's meeting. In addition, I would like to welcome Harold Murphy of Computershare, who will serve as the Inspector of Election for this meeting and has taken the requisite oath of office. Finally, I am pleased to welcome Bill Gordon and Tom Kim of PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, our independent registered public accounting firm. Each of you has access to the agenda for this meeting, as well as the rules of conduct for the Annual General Meeting, which are available in the Documents tab of the virtual meeting site. As set forth in the rules of conduct, the company will address shareholder questions to the extent they relate to the proposals being presented at this meeting. If you have any questions on the proposals, please submit them by clicking on the Q&A tab at the top of the virtual meeting site, entering your name, contact information, and question in the field provided, and then clicking on the send button. We will now proceed to the formal matters of establishing a quorum and confirming proof of proper notice of the meeting. Secretary.
This meeting was properly called pursuant to the Companies Act 1981 and the company's bylaws. I have received an affidavit of mailing establishing that notice of this meeting was duly given on or about April 10th, 2026. A copy of the notice of meeting and the affidavit of mailing will be incorporated into the minutes of this meeting. All shareholders of record at the close of business on March 30th, 2026 are entitled to vote at this Annual General Meeting.
Thank you. Our first order of business at this meeting is to determine whether the shares represented at the meeting, either in person or by proxy, are sufficient to constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. Ms. Lynn, please provide the results of the shareholder report from our transfer agent, Computershare.
Sure. The shareholder report shows that as of March 30th, 2026, the record date, there are 116,104,912 common shares and 9,713 Series A preference shares outstanding and entitled to vote at this meeting. Approximately 93% of all the shares entitled to vote at this meeting are represented in person or by proxy.
Thank you. Because shareholders entitled to cast the majority of all the votes entitled to be cast at this meeting are present in person or by proxy, I declare that a quorum is present and that this meeting is duly convened for the purpose of transacting such business as may properly come before it. Before proceeding further, we will pause briefly to allow for any questions from shareholders. There being no questions, we will proceed with the business of the meeting. I will now turn to the voting portion of this meeting and declare the polls open. Ms. Lynn, please present the matters to be voted upon.
Proposal number 1. The first proposal before the shareholders is the election of 2 Class 1 directors to serve 3-year terms expiring in 2029. The Board of Directors of the company has nominated and recommends that shareholders vote for each of the following Class 1 director nominees, including Susan Cross and Saber Patel. The second proposal before the shareholders is the approval by a non-binding advisory vote of the executive compensation payable to the company's named executive officers, as described in the proxy statement. The Board of Directors of the company recommends that the shareholders vote for this proposal. The third proposal before the shareholders is the approval of the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP to serve as the company's independent auditor until the annual general meeting to be held in 2027, and to authorize the Board of Directors, acting through its audit committee, to determine the remuneration of PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP. The Board of Directors of the company recommends that the shareholders vote for this proposal. The fourth proposal before the shareholders is the approval of the SiriusPoint Share Plan. The Board of Directors of the company recommends that shareholders vote for the SiriusPoint Share Plan. We will now proceed to voting on the proposals.
Thank you. If you have not previously submitted your proxy or wish to vote electronically, please cast your vote electronically at this time. If you have already voted by proxy, you need not vote today unless you wish to change your vote. We have now received all proxies, and as all shareholders wishing to vote have had their opportunity to do so, I hereby declare the polls closed. I will now ask the Inspector of Election to confirm that the ballots have been counted. Since the Inspector of Election has confirmed that the votes have been tabulated, I will ask Ms. Lynn to report the results of the voting.
The nominees for election as directors have received a plurality of the votes cast. The say-on-pay proposal has also received the affirmative vote of the majority of the votes cast. The proposal regarding the appointment and remuneration of PricewaterhouseCoopers as the company's independent auditor to serve until the annual general meeting to be held in 2027 has received the affirmative vote of a majority of the votes cast. The SiriusPoint Share Plan proposal has received an affirmative vote of a majority of the vote cast.
Thank you. Based on these results, Ms. Cross and Ms. Kirtle have been duly elected to the Board of Directors as Class 1 directors. The say-on-pay proposal has been approved. The appointment and remuneration of PricewaterhouseCoopers as the company's independent auditor has been approved. The SiriusPoint Share Plan has been approved. Before we conclude, on behalf of the Board of Directors and the SiriusPoint management team, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to Mr. Tad Montrose and Mr. Peter Tan. As they conclude today their more than 5 years of dedicated service on the board, I would like to commend them for their valuable contribution to the company in their respective roles. It's fair to say that they served during a tumultuous time, and they did their roles as directors proud. This concludes the formal business of today's meeting, and I now declare the 2026 Annual General Meeting of Shareholders of SiriusPoint adjourned. Thank you for attending today, and we appreciate your continued engagement and support.
This now concludes the meeting. Thank you again for attending. You may now disconnect.